Good morning, students. Today we will learn about the what is an embryology and how it developments and fertilization takes place. Okay. So today we will learn about the developmental stages of the fertilized ovum. So how the ovum is fertilized in developing stage. Okay. So yesterday in previous session we already learned that is the many sperms are there is one ovum protected from the zona pellucida wall, and many sperms are wanted to entering into that wall and enter into the uterine cavity. Okay, but there is a number of sperms that is 300 to 500, but only one sperm can enter into the destruction of that zona pellucida wall and enter into the uterine cavity. So after the entering one sperm, the fertilization takes place and the fusion of sperm and ovum occurs. Okay, so this is about the fertilization process. Now today we will learn about the how the fertilized ovum develop. Okay, so morula. So after the fertilization, the zygote divides into the two cells that is called as a blastomers. It is done by the mitotic division in about 30 hours after the fertilization. So after the completion of the fertilization process, the zygote divided into the two cells that is known as a blastomers. Okay, and the blastomers continue to divide into the binary division, means from 2 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 16. Okay, so by the binary division, the blastomers are continuing divided into the cell stage and until the cluster of cells is formed. Okay, so by the formation of cell is known as morula, so it resembling a mulberry. Okay, so at the strength of the 16 cell stage is known as a morula, because by the blastomer the mitotic division will be continued and it divided into the binary division, means from 2 cell to 4 cell, 4 cell to 8, and 8 to 16. So when it occurs into the 16 cell stage, it is known as a morula. Okay, next, that is the morula after spending about 3 days, means 72 hours in the uterine tube, entering the uterine cavity through the narrow uterine ostium, means the diameter of the uterine ostium is 1 millimeter on the 4th day. So after the completion of the fertilization process, spending the morula spending 3 days, means 72 hours into that particular uterine tube, but from where enter into the uterine cavity through the normal uterine narrow uterine ostium. Okay, so this is about morula, and in this figure you can understand easily. Okay, so this is the one cell which is known as a zygote. Okay, so from that the binary division start. So from zygote, that is division into two, that is known as a blastomers, and the surrounding wall is known as a zona pellucida. We already learned in previous session. So the two blastomers in one in the wall. Okay, uterine cavity. So two cells, from 2 the mitotic divisions takes place. So from 2 to 4 cells occur, 4 cells straight to 8 cells occur, and from 8 cells to 16 cells occur in the uterine cavity. So this 16 cell stage is known as a morula. So by this figure you can find the development of the morula. Okay, next, that is the how morula occurs. Okay, so this is a uterine cavity. Okay, this hole is a uterus, structure of uterus, and this is the fertilization. Sperm and ovum fuse and fertilization takes place. So from fertilization, after 72 hours, post fertilization event start and it enter into the uterus. We already learned in previous slide. So from that the blastocyst, means blastomers occur, and blastomers, see, this is the blastocyst. Okay, so from blastocyst cavity it divided into the mitotic division. Okay, so this is uterine cavity. The process of fertilization shown here. See, this is the ovum, and this is the sperm one entering into the wall. So the fusion of sperm and ovum occurs in these. Then blastomers and zygote form. Okay. So the sperm and ovum fused here and the zygote is ready. So when zygote is prepared, so the binary division is takes place and division is occurred. Binary division means from 1 to blastomers, 2 to 4, 4 to 8 and 8 to 16. So when the 16 cell stage occurs, it is known as a morula. Okay, and then after the post fertilization event, 3 days means 72 hours entering into the uterine cavity. So this is about the summary of the morula. Okay, next the blastocyst. Morula, once entering into the uterine cavity, it floats freely for next 2 days. Okay, so after the entering into the uterine cavity, the morula can float in freely into the cavity for next 2 days, means 48 hours, and it is covered by endometrial fluid and mucus. So the innermost layer of the uterus, that is endometrium, with covered by that layer and fluid and mucus. So this fluid is absorbed through the canaliculi of the zona pellucida wall, and morula begins to accumulate fluid and forms a cavity between its cells. So this fluid is absorbed some material, okay, from the zona pellucida wall, and morula begins to accumulate fluid from that cavity between the cells also. So once cavity is appear, it is now called as a blastocyst. So from that cavity appear, we can known as a now blastocyst. Okay, so this is the structure of blastocyst. So in this figure also you may find out that is fertilization and events of the first 6 days of the development. So different day development is shown in this figure. I will summarize you by this figure. Okay, so this is the structure of uterus. Okay, in this figure also it's shown that this is the uterus and this is the cavity of uterus, means innermost layer. Okay, so the ovulation takes place in the ovary. Okay, ovulation takes place here. So from the ovulation, oocytes are released and it will goes into the uterine cavity itself, uterine tube, and fertilization takes place. So after the fertilization, the zygote is formed and the binary division is takes place, means from blastomer to 2 cells, 2 to 4 cells, 4 to 8 and 8 to 16 cells, means morula takes place after 3 days. So zygote is formed first day, 4 cell stage formed at the second day, morula is formed at the third day, and fourth day the early blastocyst, means the cavity appear known as a blastocyst, is appear on the fourth day. So it is implanted into the uterine cavity. So the D portion is our blastocyst. Okay, and this is the cavity of blastocyst cavity and trophoblast. Okay, so and implanting blastocyst 6 day, means after the completion of the fertilization, after 6 day implanting of the blastocyst occurs. Okay, so this is about the summarization of the fertilization and events of the developing first 6 day developmental stage. Okay, so further move on. What is the blastocyst? Is we already discussed, that is the zona pellucida become the stretch out and thin and gradually disappear soon prior to implantation. So before the fertilization phase, blastocyst will stay there. But after the once fertilization completed, soon prior to implantation, the blastocyst will be disappear. Okay. So the cell of the outer cell mass form the wall of the blastocyst and it is known as a trophoblast. So now blastocyst disappear and trophoblast takes place. So what is trophoblast? The cell of the outer cell mass form the wall. So the wall is known as a trophoblast. So the inner cell mass is concerned with development of the embryo, and that inner cell mass of the trophoblast is known as a development of the embryo. So for the fetal development, it is very important. So in this figure also that is shown. First that is zygote, then two blastomers, mitotic division continuing, then 4 to 8 cell, 8 to 16, that is morula. After morula, early blastocyst means this is the blastotic cavity and inner cell mass. Okay, so inner cell mass are same into the both cavity and blastotic cavity also same. From that cavity, the blastocyst now disappear and trophoblast takes place. This is the trophoblast. Okay, so it is not some other part but also part of the blastocyst, but the cavities disappear of the blastotic and new cavity form, that is known as a trophoblast, and surrounding wall is the zona pellucida remaining the same. So this is the difference of the early blastocyst and late blastocyst. Okay, so you may find out the difference. So this is the structure of blastocyst. Next, that is the two distincting cell types. So of the blastocyst, there is a two types of cell. Okay, trophoblast and inner cell mass. So it is divided into two. In this figure, it is shown that is this is the trophoblast and this is the inner cell mass, bluish color. Okay, so trophoblast means it will form invading the placenta. So now in future, the trophoblast is prepare the maternal placenta. So mother side placenta is formed by the trophoblast. And what are the function of inner cell mass? So the inner cell mass will form the embryo. So fetus development of the fetus will be formed from the inner cell mass and development of the placenta from the trophoblast. So these main two cells are very important for the whole fetal and mother. Okay. So maternal placenta developed by the trophoblast and the inner cell mass will prepare the embryo. So in this flowchart also you may summarize the blastocyst. So main, that is blastocyst. It will divided into two cells we already discussed, that is trophoblast and inner cell mass. So trophoblast further divided into two, that is placentine chorion and inner cell mass form, that is the embryo means fetus, amnion and umbilical cord, because the amnion and umbilical cord also attach with the fetus. Okay, so inner cell mass preparing the fetal side preparation and the trophoblast prepare for the mother placenta. Okay, so this is the most important cells of the blastocyst. Next, that is the HCG hormone. So HCG is produced means human chorionic gonadotropin hormone. It is produced by the trophoblast starting on the day 6. So after the fertilization day 6, the trophoblastic start the releasing the HCG hormone, and the HCG causes the endometrium of the uterus to grow and proliferate. Okay, so the main function of the HCG is and the uterus wall, that is endometrium, for growth and proliferation. So HCG prevents the menstrual cycle from the occurring. We all know that during the pregnancy phase, menstruation phase is stopped. So which the help of this is occur due to the help of the HCG level. So HCG prevents the menstrual phase during the pregnancy. So this is why a female misses her periods when she is pregnant. This is the main reason why the periods are stopped during the pregnancy. So due to presence of the HCG hormone, it is responsible for the pregnancy. Okay, by the confirmation of pregnancy, we can say that the HCG is present. So it help into the prevention of the menstrual phase and starting the pregnancy phase. Okay, so this is the function of HCG. Now after the completion of the fertilization, implantation takes place. So at the second week, implantation takes place. This figure already we discussed into the previous slide. Okay, so after the fertilization and blastocyst morula occurs, the implantation after the 6th day will takes place. Okay, so implantation occurs at the 6th day after the fertilization, as I told earlier. So approximate the day 20th day at the regular menstrual cycle. So after the 20th day, approximate the 20th day of the menstrual cycle, and after the completion of the fertilization, 6th day, implantation takes place. So as the zona pellucida wall surrounding the blastocyst will be disappear. Now the surrounding wall of the uterus means blastocyst cell, that is the zona pellucida, will be disappear, and there is an increased adhesiveness of the trophoblastic cells to the endometrium layer. So the increased adhesiveness of the trophoblast. Okay. So trophoblastic cells invade the stromal cell lying between the secretory endometrial gland and histolytic action of the blastocyst, which bringing about the deeper penetration into the decidua. Decidua means the myometrium layer of the uterus is known as the decidua during the pregnancy stage. So the trophoblastic cell continuing invading and proliferation into the secretory cell and histolytic action. Okay. So the syncytial cell means multinucleated cell ultimately penetrate and endoepithelial coated the maternal decidua capillaries, establishing the communication with the syncytial lacunar system. So from the mother side, that is the endothelial coat is responsible for the protection. So the syncytial cell are formed and penetrate surrounding that the endothelial coat. So thus the maternal blood circulates through the syncytial lacuna, providing the nourishment to the blastocyst. So which cell provides the nourishment to the blastocyst? That is the mother blood, means maternal blood circulate surrounding the syncytial cell, which nourishing to the blastocyst. Okay, so in this figure also blood flow is appear. Okay, so see, this is the maternal blood vessel which provide nourishment to the blastocyst and trophoblast. Okay, so this is about that. Further, penetration is continued but arrested by the maternal immunological blocking factor. But the point of entry of blastocyst into the decidual layer is sealed by the fibrin coat and later by the epithelium coat. So the penetration is now stopped, means arrested by the maternal immunological blocking factor. So that is a blocking factor from the mother side which arrested the penetration moment, and the point of entry of the blastocyst will be sealed by the decidua. Okay, so the process of implantation is completed by the 10th or 11th day of the fertilization. So when the implantation start, that is after completion of the fertilization, 6th day, 6th to 8th day, the implantation will be started, and when it is the completely process. So the completely process of implantation is by the 10th or 11th day after the fertilization. So this is the most important point. Okay. So this type of the deeper penetration of the human blastocyst is called as interstitial implantation. So the deeper penetration of the human blastocyst cell is known as a interstitial implantation, and the blastocyst is covered on all sides of the endometrium layer, means decidual covering. Okay, so that blastocyst cell are covered by the decidua, means endometrium layer. So occasionally there may be increase the blood flow into the lacunar space, and it can cause the bleeding. So this is the important point, that is which can cause the bleeding. So the increased blood flow from the maternal side into the lacunar space, which can lead to the bleeding, and it is called as a implantation bleeding. Not only miscarriage or abort, but it is a implantation bleeding. But these correspondings approximate the 13th day after the fertilization, means at about the expected day of period. So mother can confuse with that period date. Okay, means that next menstrual phase. So it can confusing for the mother that is she pregnant or not, but it is the actually implantation bleeding at continue at the 13th day after the fertilization. This may produce the confusion and determination of the EDD also. So it can confuse into the counting of the expected date of delivery, but it is not problem of worry, but it is actual implantation bleeding. After some time it can disappear. Okay, So at the 13th day after the fertilization, it may appear. Not in all women, but in some cases that is the bleeding slightly present at the 13th day after the fertilization. Okay. So this is about the development of the ovum and blastocyst. Okay. So if you find any doubt, you may ask. Okay, and revise it. So thank you.